So when we're first starting to play the violin, we may not ever hear of a sounding point or contact point. We may not know what that means, but as soon as we take that bow to the string, we're playing one. So it's where your bow sits on the string, and when you're first starting off, oftentimes people say, well, let's just play right down the middle. We're going to keep the bow perpendicular to the string. We spend a lot of time on that. Frog to tip in the middle, different rhythms, and we might, just never waver from that, but the bow will want to waver, and we'll find those sounds that are created when it starts to slide. We might get this idea that really we just always need to be right down the middle. So we're going to completely blow that out of the water. We actually have a range here, playing range on a violin or a viola or a cello, that actually extends all the way from the bridge to just over the fingerboard. And I would say the best tone and playable range is going to be a little bit more narrow than that, but we actually have some interesting sounds that we can get at the extreme lengths of this area, and also depending on what we're doing, how we're using the bow, how we're using the left hand, we will find some sweet spots, our best sounding points for the clearest tone, somewhere in this range, and they're not always going to be right down the middle. So when we're on the bridge, we call it sol ponticello, and that will occasionally be written in music when it comes time to get this kind of like glassy, almost like otherworldly sound. I've only come across it a few times, honestly, and it's usually in a section in an orchestra piece where we want to create some mystery. So it's going to maybe be tied together with some tremolo. This kind of sound, which is actually pretty cool, but not, for everyday use. And over the fingerboard, we have sol tasto, so it's on the touch. I assume they're thinking of the touch like the fingerboard where you touch, but we can just think about it a little bit over the fingerboard, and that's kind of more of this flutando, kind of this flute sound, a softer, kind of more airy sound out there. So maybe not good for the entrance of a major, romantic era concerto or something, but for something, again, that sounds a little bit more mysterious or softer, sweeter, maybe that is a good spot for that. So those are the extremes. But now just every day, let's say that we're just starting off and we're starting to play a little faster, and we go from tone that we've finally settled in with and it's sounding good and we're right down the middle like our teacher said, and then it starts to sound not so great anymore. So let me demonstrate this, because there are some issues with the sounding point when this happens. So let's say we're playing like some easy twinkle rhythms, our first rhythms in Suzuki Book 1. And maybe we're starting with variation A, right? So we have our 4/16 notes, 2 8th notes. I call it a sticky, sticky donut. That's pretty good right down the middle. Nice clear tone. Now if I wanted to go a little faster, it's not working anymore, right? And we're thinking, gosh, I've been practicing and now I'm getting worse. What is the problem? And I'm doing everything right, quote unquote right. Well, actually, here's the deal. Let's explore. So if I'm here and I'm going kind of slow or moderate, all is well. Once I start going faster, that bow can't settle in as well anymore. We've changed one of the factors, right? So anytime we change a factor, we may need to change this sounding point, and we start to explore this range. So let's try and go a little further away now, and I'll go faster. Again, we're back to the clearer tone. So back here in the middle, I just move over a little bit, maybe 1/4 of an inch. Much better. If I keep traveling, it starts to get more of that airy sound. It's not as clear anymore, right? So if I'm going for that, that might be fine. Otherwise, I'd want to back in a little bit and not go quite as extreme out to the fingerboard. And let's see what would happen as well. This is often the case where we get startled when we're, even if we're more advanced, but certainly if we're a beginner and everything's going well and then we hear this really weird sound, if we start moving in towards the bridge, let's check it out here with that faster. There's our ponticello sound, right? So unless we're going for some spookiness, that's probably not where we want to be here for a faster sound. Now let's see what would happen if we were to bow. So the bow is physically moving now a little bit slower. Still okay, but I feel like it's just not really wanting to settle into the string. It sounds a little bit airier now than when it was. That had more clarity. So I'm going to move in towards the bridge just a little bit and go back to that slower version. So let's just, actually, we'll try it in the middle one more time. It's like the tone's kind of going out, right? So if I go too close, it gets a little bit of that glassy sound. So I just need to maybe go a little bit in, and then I really feel like we're kind of able to find that new little track here. There we go. Even slower. There we go. If I did that slow out here. The bow, it wants to slide in. It's like, this isn't the spot for me. So we see, just with a little rhythm like that, how we can troubleshoot some sounds that we're hearing that we don't like, how we might need to migrate if we're changing our tempos up. And it's, it can just be so frustrating if we think we're doing everything right and then we hear some of these sounds. So it's really good to know, especially for troubleshooting, and then just being aware as you're moving your bow faster. So it's not necessarily that the note values are going faster. I mean, it typically, that would be the case as well. But for now, just think, okay, is my bow moving relatively quick or relatively slow? I'm going to take a long time to get from frog to tip. I'm going to go fast time from frog to tip, and then that will serve you well if you're trying to decide where to go. So faster, more moderate, more slow. Now, there are other factors which we'll get to in a minute, but there is a British pedagogue named Simon Fisher, and he talks about 5 levels. And it's a good exercise to maybe think about, or tracks, to think about these 5 tracks, and to maybe do a practice where you were doing these rhythms, or just some long bows or some shorter bows, or a passage in a piece, and where you're trying to kind of keep your bow in one of the tracks and see what the string in the bow needs to get you the best tone. So if I just wanted to kind of stay out here, you know that the slower one it's kind of airy. So if I wanted to get a more clear, kind of crystal sound there, I would have to go much faster, and I could move in a little bit. And we start to get sensitive to, there's a certain tension on the string. And as I move the bow faster or slower, we're just kind of exploring this, right? And feeling how the string reacts to the bow. So again, contact point, sounding point. How does the string sound? What does it need? So then I'm right down the middle. And I'm feeling through my index finger. I'm feeling how that contact is happening. How can I still get that grip, even though I'm here versus there? And it feels like, it needs to go slower in order not to kind of catch and jitter, right, and lose the contact. And if I move in a little bit further, right, I have to go even slower. I really have to slow it down, and kind of, it's like a meditative bow stroke at that point. And I could probably even get a little closer in. There are other factors that allow me to get even closer to the bridge here, but I will just try it on an open string. If I go really, really slow, I might be able to still get that good tone. It's tough though, right on the razor's edge, right on the other side is going to be that ponticello. So let's talk about some of these other factors as well. So if I were to go up the fingerboard, I have shortened that string length quite dramatically here. Try that note. So I can't play out over here anymore. Basically, I'm so high that these 3 strings are all level. So if I try, I'm just gonna hit these other strings. It would be impossible. They're just so close. I could move in a little bit. It's kind of airy sounding. Clearer. A little clearer. Now I'm able to get in it. Now I'm still going pretty fast. Like that's what I had going, you know, out here somewhere before, that type of speed. And now I'm able to get almost right on top of the bridge. So depending on where you're playing, this is a factor, right? As we shorten the string length, that playable range also shortens and it scoots up towards the bridge. So a lot of times, you know, and maybe we'll give the example of a higher note here. Where, you know, if I'm down here, the bow's sliding around. It can't find a place to settle in. So we've got this long string, and most of the time, you know, we're down here, we're up here, maybe a little bit higher, and there's this bounciness in the string. And then we have this bridge that's our highest peak, and it's sending a lot of tension back down the string. And so as we change that string length, we're changing kind of this little spot where that bow can settle. I almost think about it like here's our peak, and we have kind of this slope, this sheer slope coming down into a valley. And as we change that playable length, we're going to find that bow is going to settle really nicely into this little valley, but it's going to change spots. So there's our sweet spots. We always have to look for them so we can find that best tone. So of course, that bow is relatively slow. I'll go a little faster. I can maybe back off a little bit, but it still wants to stay pretty close. Again, because this is a very short string. Okay, so that's one factor to think about, and often why when we start to climb up into higher positions, we hear these sounds that we don't like, and sometimes it is the left hand, but oftentimes it's actually the bow. So exploring the different tracks and what you need to do for bow speed, and with bow speed will come a sense of weight, how much weight we need to put in there. Exploring those to get the best tone. So faster bow, slower bow, somewhere in between, right? And maybe a little bit lighter out here, maybe a little bit actually heavier up here, somewhere in between. Another interesting exploration here would be to start out over the fingerboard a little bit and just to have a steady bow stroke, whatever that's going to be. So let's just do moderate. We'll do in the middle of the bow. And I'm going to just kind of explore how the sound changes as I go in towards the bridge. So I'm going to be up here, and we would expect more of that airy sound. If that's what I'm going for, that's fine. But I'm going to move in towards me. We hear it clarify. More there, it almost sounds like it gets a little sharper. You know, there's this sense like the string and the sense that I have in my hold here, this feeling that I'm getting back, particularly through the index finger, you know, the sensitivity is like the string, rather than it being so bouncy down there, it's like meeting me. It's coming up and meeting the bow. It's literally meeting the bow hair. So I feel like there's a real nice like sandwich effect there. So that's actually a nice little range where I could probably, for that particular bow speed and weight, go from there and have kind of this airier sound. Getting clearer, nice clear sound. Now I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to get into a part where I would have to slow the bow down a lot to keep it clear, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to keep everything the same here, and we're going to hear that ponticello come in, and then I'm going to back up to the good spot after that. So we'll hear that deteriorate a little bit. Right on the razor's edge, so it wasn't far. Oftentimes the most clear spot is going to be right on the other side of the most weird glassy spot, you know, that just kind of, it's almost, yeah, this otherworldly thing. So that's no good. And here I am back to my sweet spot. If I were to slow it down, I can really play with that edge there. But it takes a lot of control with the arm, a lot of steadiness. So opening this whole range up is quite interesting. And and we're able to get a lot of different tones, and most importantly, when we're first starting off, we're able to get the best tones and the clearest tones when, again, we think we're doing everything right, and then we change up a factor and we realize, whoa, this doesn't work anymore. So oftentimes it can just be that sounding point, contact point, and it's definitely worth it to develop a sensitivity for all those different spots and to feel those little tracks where the bow kind of wants to settle in based on maybe where we're playing up the fingerboard, based on how fast or slow the bow is moving. And we're going for consistency there. So if we can feel like there's a consistency in just how the bow settles into the string, how the string and horsehair meet, then we'll be able to always kind of just in a very subtle, kind of tactile way, find those sweet spots. But it's good to have that intellectual knowledge as well, so that we're not caught off guard and wondering, what is that sound? Where is that coming from? We can definitely troubleshoot that, and it's really not that challenging. All of those squeaks and stuff, we can identify them pretty quickly and figure out how to avoid them.